Inviting me here. So thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor to speak to you. I know some of you folks, and I know I've supported the Grand River Council on Aging in different ways over the years, and it's just a very worthy cause. And kudos to everyone who's making that happen. I'm Dr. Alfred Hauk. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I own Holistic Healing Arts, which is a multidisciplinary clinic at 274 King George Road here in Brantford. So I wanted to speak about naturopathic medicine, and I wanted to speak about the umbrella that encompasses naturopathic medicine, which is called holistic healing or just a holistic model. And holistic is an interesting word. It sometimes gets misunderstood. Holistic talks about, actually, I'm going to speak about naturopathic medicine first, then I'll talk about holistic. So to be a naturopath, you need your 3 years of university pre-med, 4 years of naturopathic college. We write provincial licensing exams. In Ontario, we're regulated under the regulated RHPA, the Regulated Health Professions Act, which regulates medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, nurse practitioners, and so on. And to do that, we have to write these licensing laws. We do continuing education. And I share that because sometimes the whole field of complementary medicine is a mixed bag of many, many things. And it's important to know that a naturopathic doctor is someone who has some training, has some knowledge, and works well with all the other health professions that are regulated in Ontario. We can order labs, for example, from Life Labs and Canalt and all the other lab companies in Ontario, and we often work together shoulder to shoulder in different settings with different health professionals, which is really a part of the holistic approach, which is that everybody has something to do to contribute to the overall good picture of what we're trying to accomplish. We have 5 naturopathic doctors in our clinic, and I just wanted to share this because I find it quite interesting. I did my pre-med back in the 1980s, and I did 3 years at the University of Alberta, some of which I had done earlier, and then some I did in the 80s. But I'm actually the poorest educated naturopath in our clinic, if we really wanted to get down to it. Dr. Mary Lee Albano, for example, has a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry, a Master's of Public Health, and her ND degree. Dr. Rana Samara was actually a medical doctor in Jordan. The MBBS stands for Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, which is an internationally recognized degree. And Dr. Ankar Singh has his Bachelor of Science in Honors Biology at McMaster. Dr. Simone Burke has a Bachelor of Science, I think also in Biology, a Master's of Science in Ethnic Botany, and an ND degree. And there's that poor guy at the bottom of the list there. He's just got those only 2 letters after his name. It's kind of sad, but he does his best given his limited education. So I just wanted to share that, just to let you know that there's quite an interesting team there, and that we really are fortunate to have these people in Brantford, and we really do a lot of good work. I think some of the things that naturopathic doctors can do, and this is just a very incomplete list. We are in those 4 years, we have good grounding in basically traditional Chinese medicine. We've become very comfortable with botanical medicine, acupuncture. I personally do a lot of sports medicine, or did when I was working still full-time seeing patients. We do acupuncture, we can do adjustments, different kinds of physical therapy. We have 2 doctors who do nutritional IV therapy, where we have our own little suite with 5 chairs where people will come in and get a catheter into the vein, and different types of nutrients are put directly into the veins for different reasons. We have athletes that do that. We have people who are recovering from major invasive procedures, recovering from cancer treatments, and we're able to support that and help them heal a little faster and get their mojo back. Different things that are also hands-on: bone therapy, pressure point therapy. We can order blood work. We can do nutraceutical medicine. And there's a lot of research, especially in Europe, on the use of different types of natural supplements that are then concentrated and focused to have a specific value and a specific purpose when you prescribe them. So there's use for that type of thing, and botanical medicine, which has been used since time immemorial. The nice thing about botanical medicine these days is that there's so much research being done, and they're able to isolate the active components in a botanical product and and a herb, and then able to concentrate it in a way that makes it consistently effective, which was always an issue years ago. You would sometimes have a good crop or a good year, more sun, less sun, and all those things create variables in your active components of herbal medicine. And that's really now something that modern science has been able to equal out for us. So it's we have a lot of tools that we can tap into, and we can help people with those. The idea and what we do with these different tools is basically to help people get better. And so we're not really a crisis care focused type of organization or therapy. We really are about disease prevention and health promotion. And I think in this modern day and age, more and more of us are realizing how important that is. It's wonderful that we have crisis care. It's wonderful if we can get a hip replaced. It's absolutely terrific. If some major crisis happens, we have the best of modern care. I have a son who's a paramedic. Tremendous stories that he tells me about lives saved and so on. But at the same time, we can't underestimate the value of doing things while we're healthy and how to maintain that health and maximize that health. Because even if we're, let's say, getting a surgery, the healthier we are before we go into the surgery, the better the outcome odds are. So there's always value in doing things that are naturopathic, that are holistic, that are talking about how to maximize our good health. And the holistic concept is something that relates to living systems, which is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And it's important to understand that our good health isn't just about eating some vitamins or taking some medicine. It's really everything. Even the way we design our cities and the way we organize our life all contribute to the good health of the people that are living there. And we have a long way to go. I think we can do much more work in terms of how we do community things to focus on the health of people. You know, when we look at some of the issues with depression and school kids with their issues with focus and ADHD and so on, there's things that we could do in terms of how we teach, how we organize our schools, how we organize our community, make it more people friendly rather than car friendly. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of hundreds of thousands of things that we could be doing as a community and as individuals to put all the pieces together that all point in the same direction and make a difference to our good health. So all the different parts work together. We're into treating the whole person, not just the symptoms. We are looking at the underlying causes, empowering the patient so they become their own best advocate. It's very important. We know that when a person is actively engaged in the process of how to get healthier or how to organize their life, as opposed to just passively doing what they're told, the outcomes are much better. There's really no substitute for people getting behind the steering wheel and feeling like they're in control of some aspects of their life. That's an absolutely critical piece of good health. And it's really what naturopathic medicine is about. We're into empowering the patient. And we also encourage the patients to not just always do what they're told. You know, it's important as a patient to be educated, to trust their instincts, to advocate for themselves, and to put a team of good people together to maximize their health. And that might include a good dentist, a good naturopathic doctor, a good medical doctor. You know, it's like these people, we all work for you. And it's really important, I think, that people really get a good handle on that, that at the end of the day, the buck stops with them. They make the final decision. That doesn't mean that you work only with Dr. Google. You have to definitely talk to experts in their different areas and get some good advice. But you do hire good people. You hire a good, you know, in our home world, we hire a good plumber and we take his advice. We hire a good interior decorator. Doesn't mean that we have to do everything they say, but at the same time, you don't hire experts unless you're willing to, you know, really work with them and understand where they're coming from and respect their knowledge. And it's really that holistic approach is really talking to body, mind, spirit, and emotion. Very important that those areas all be addressed. And that's part of the overall holistic piece when we're talking about good health. Just an interesting area that I just wanted to touch on is an area called the blue zones, and we'll touch on it a little bit later. You may have heard about the blue zones. These are parts of the world where an amazing large percentage of the people are living to be over 100. They have a really very active quality of life, and that includes people in areas like Sardinia, Icaria in Nicoya in in Greece, Okinawa, and other places. And what are these folks doing that has been studied now? If you Google Blue Zone, you'll get lots of neat information about that, is that they tend to not necessarily be working out a gym like crazy. They aren't, always stressed out. They aren't commuting for 3 hours to work. There's a certain commonality, no matter whether those folks live in Central America or Japan or in the Mediterranean area. They tend to be active, but not in a stressed out way. They garden, they walk, they enjoy nature. We talked earlier about getting out and enjoying the sun. They do that kind of thing. There's a sense of purpose. Even as we get older, we have roles to play. We have challenges to meet. We have places to go and people to see. And that's absolutely critically important. They tend to not overeat. And that's something we all need to work on. I need to work on that. It's like there's that old Tibetan saying, to live a good long life, it's like eat half, walk twice, laugh 3 times and love unconditionally. But we tend to do some of those things better than others. But one of the standards in all of these societies is they tend to push away the plate when they're about 80% full. That seems to be an interesting research thing. And they tend to eat more fiber and more plants and so on and so on. They have a sense of belonging. The family stays together. People are engaged with 3 or 4 generations and uncles and aunts and cousins and nephews. There's something about that. And they also have a solid group of quality friends. And it's an important piece. And I wanted to mention this: loneliness kills. Statistically, it's harder on us than smoking and alcoholism. So that's a terrible thing to have to face. But we need to recognize that if we're not lonely, that's great. But maybe some of our friends are a bit lonely. And so it's an active thing that we all should be working on if we're talking about good health, how to help each other and how to help ourselves. And that's really the key. And the solid group of friends is an important thing, because I did some research on that a couple of years ago. It turns out it's a quality thing. Our Facebook friends aren't really on that list particularly. It's important to understand that. We're talking about quality. Just a few people, someone you could phone if you needed your fridge moved, or someone that would be there for you, and someone would be defending you if somebody was chatting about you somewhere at another meeting, and talking smack about you. You don't need a lot of them, but you do need them, and you need to be able to be engaged with them. Very important piece of living a good life. There's been many studies done over health and longevity, and that reason I'm going there is because that's really the holistic piece. It's just not about eating your veggies or taking your vitamins. It's about doing many, many different things, and many which are, I thought, appropriate, because I think this is the kind of thing you guys are often pushing and selling and sharing with others, which is how do we keep being active and engaged and maximize our good health as the years fly by. And there's many studies that support these things that aren't just about the physical. The common thread, actually, weirdly enough, that is associated with longevity and good health is being conscientious. So that was an interesting thing. And that idea of being conscientious taps into a lot of things. Conscientious people tend to be thinking of others. They tend to not be going out and taking extra big risks. They tend to be being thoughtful and engaged and taking care of themselves and thinking about the future. And so it was an interesting thing that being conscientious is actually a piece of being healthy and long-lived. The other thing is that some people think that, once they retire, they don't have any problems. It turns out that if you don't have problems, it's actually not good either. You want to have problems. You want to create problems, but you want to make them things that you can deal with. You choose your problems, which is maybe one of the nicer things about retirement, is that you now pick your problems. But if you are overcoming obstacles towards known goals, that concept and that activity is just one of the most healthy things that you can do for yourself. Set goals, set targets, overcome some obstacles, accomplish those things. There might be a bit stress involved, but short-term stress that we then win against is actually a recipe for good health. The stress thing, which often gets focused on, has to do with this chronic stress that never ends, that we can never back away from and never kind of take a win of. So it's important to understand that having challenges is actually really important. It's not a bad thing at all. Our body is actually designed as if all stresses were fairly short term. So if you can think of, you've come out of the cave and there's that saber-toothed tiger. And within a fraction of a second, your heart starts to race, your arteries constrict, your mouth dries up, your energy stops digesting food, and now it just releases sugar from the liver so that everything is there so that you can now either swing that club 400 times a minute, or you can run up the side of a tree that you couldn't climb on a good day with a rope, and it's done. And this pendulum swings over here. Your body will do everything it can at that moment to survive. This is the story of, the mom lifting the bus off of her kid, and then being in the hospital for a week afterwards while her the muscles in her back heal up. But at that moment, your body is designed to deal with whatever stress there is. And then the bell rings and it's over, right? You either now have a new rug for the cave, you're either on a tree, yelling at the tiger, or you're a supper for the tiger. But either way, it's over. And now the pendulum swings back the other way. And now it's a wonderful place to be, right? Now your mouth starts to water, your appetite comes back, you're ready to feast. You want to tell all the gals in the cave what a horrible monster you just killed, and send your husband out to skin it and bring that pelt back into the cave. But now it's an exciting time, and you heal and you revel in the win that you just had of staying alive and overcoming this stress. And these kind of things, and some version of this pendulum swinging back and forth, is actually a strategy of good health. We need those stresses. But often we nowadays seem to be chronically stressed. We don't dance enough, we don't sing enough, we don't celebrate enough, and we just seem to be just this niggling, always kind of stressed about something. We're driving to Toronto and that guy's in the left lane the whole way, and you got to keep passing on the right, and that's annoying. And then, the visa bill comes in and it's not quite right, and the news is bad. And so there's always this never ending kind of stress, very hard on our system. We just aren't designed to deal with that. We do best having good stresses that we then have a win over overcoming, and then we celebrate that. And I think that's an important thing, and we can organize our life to do a bit more of that. We need to celebrate our wins. We don't have wins if we don't have some obstacle we overcome. So we need both, but I think we just don't celebrate our wins enough. We are about naturopathic medicine, holistic healing. It's about creating your own unique owner's manual. Everybody is different. We all react to different therapies differently. Some people respond to, let's say, acupuncture remarkably well. I've had patients that came in, had headaches for years, did a couple acupuncture treatments, migraines went away. 10 years later, there's still patients. Those have never come back. They send their friend who has exactly the same problem. We do the same treatment on that person, and it doesn't work for them. Very frustrating and very, very problematic. So when we're dealing with these subtle, when it comes to putting a hip in place, that's pretty black and white. But when it comes to how to manage your owner's manual and why some people respond differently than others, it's really a team effort. It's the physician and the patient putting their heads together and figuring out their own unique owner's manual. Some of us have sensitivities to foods. Some of us do better with different kinds of activities and exercises. Another story that just struck me. I had this patient who was a longtime patient, good friend, and he's a slender person, a bit of a bookworm, a bit of a cartoon nerd, if you will, involved with bookstores, involved with libraries, and he just needed something to get him out of his head. And I had suggested that he maybe go and do something, like Tai Chi or yoga, which I felt would be a nice kind of thing for this academic to do. And he did it, and he just didn't like it. What's this silly? Pick an apple, put it in my pocket. That's just all silliness. He just wasn't into this whole Tai Chi thing. Comes back a month later, and he joined this karate club. Well, holy Dinah, he loved it. This idea of throwing people over his shoulder that were 40 pounds heavier than him and putting an elbow to their throat. I don't know what it was, but he was just a happy camper, and he loved doing that. So I couldn't have predicted that. And I had another fellow that's the polar opposite. He was historically an Olympic athlete years ago. And we said, you got to get out of the house and do things. And he said, there's a school down the road and they have volleyball. I said, go for it. And he came back and said, I hate that. You know, I did a spike and I missed it. And I was so pissed off with myself. I couldn't sleep that night. And, you know, we didn't win the game. We lost the game. And I said, you got to find something a little different that's more that your lifestyle. He went and tried Tai Chi and loved it. And here's this, you know, 6'2", you know, 200-pound guy doing Tai Chi and just loving it. And here's this other guy, 90 pounds, loving karate. So, you know what? I don't pretend to be able to be a prophet and predict what people will do, but they have to figure out their own owner's manual and figure out the strategies that work for them and the lifestyle things. And we have to obviously deal with both the external environment and the internal environment. And again, we have to learn, obviously, what we can control and what we can't control. And that's a huge part of that whole stress business. Anyway, genetics, I wanted to touch on genetics because over the years, now that we've mapped the human genome, we actually have some very wonderful tests that we can do that give us a sense of which people will react differently to different medications. So the whole field of understanding genetics and the uniqueness of people is a great field. But interestingly enough, the more we learn about genetics, the more we learn that it isn't the master of our fate as we once thought. You know, years ago, it was like, well, you know, it's genetics. You're just going to have diabetes. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, it's just genetics. You're going to have this. Turns out that our ability to act and think and own our body really actually turns off and turns on different switches in our whole genetic makeup that allows us to prevent certain kinds of health problems and maximize certain kinds of activities and good health in our body. So genetics isn't the be all and end all that we once thought. We are still the masters of our fate, and that percentage that we can't control, that's maybe that part of genetics that we can't control, has become much smaller in the last 5 or 6 decades. We really are in so many ways the masters of our own fate, and we need to work with people that can help us get a better handle on that. And that might include health coaches or naturopathic doctors or your medical doctor. But it is important to understand that you drive your health. You are behind the steering wheel. So we talked a bit about this, but patterns of good living. And I just wanted to say that, good food, don't sweat the small stuff. In my business, and again, this is something that's changed over the 30 years. I can remember 30 years ago working with patients and getting a good handle on their whole health, talking about different things, doing what was called a elimination and challenge. They thought maybe there was a certain food that didn't agree with them. We did some testing, confirmed, no, that wasn't it. Or yes, you know what, you really should stay away from wheat or something because it doesn't quite agree with you. And there's so many other choices. And so that's what we used to do. Now it's almost the opposite. So many of my patients come in, and between Dr. Google and the media, they've already decided that there's a whole bunch of foods they can't eat, and there's all sorts of, they've demonized all sorts of stuff that is out there, and they've put themselves into a very restrictive diet. And I'm now actually advocating the opposite. I'm telling them, eat more variety. Don't be so afraid of food. Don't paint yourself into a corner because of what you're eating. So you don't want to get too stressed out about that. There is always someone who has a legitimate bad reaction to certain foods, but that's not universal. It's really important to understand that. We tend to demonize foods these days, and I think that's to our detriment. We want to eat a wide variety of high fiber, wholesome foods, locally grown if we can, but we really want to be careful to not get caught up with that generality of, all of this is bad or all of that is bad. When we look at the diets of the people that are living in the blue zones, some eat dairy, some don't eat dairy, some eat more wheat, some eat less wheat, some eat seafood, some don't eat seafood. So there seems to be a lot of ways to eat healthy around the world, and it's just a matter of figuring that out. But please don't go down that rabbit hole of making long lists of, the nightshade family is all bad, or this is all bad, or all dairy is bad. Don't go there. Figure it out. There are some specific tests that can be done. You can work with someone. We can help you with that. But be very careful that you don't cut yourself off from good nutrition just because of your neighbor hates dairy or something like that, and you've decided to buy into that. Does that make sense, kind of? I don't want to, generalize about that too much, but it is important to eat good food, wholesome food, not over-processed, wide variety of things. Eat the things that your grandparents used to eat. That's another thing we tend to people over the years have eaten certain ways, and their ability to digest those foods is better. So if you've lived, for example, I have a lot of Dutch Reform patients. They're a tight-knit community, and they are all, once you help one of them, you've got a whole bunch of them coming and visiting you. Well, they've lived for how many generations in an area that is reclaimed from the sea, high iodine content in the soil, lots of seafood. And when they come here, Ontario is actually historically the buckle of the goiter belt. Our land here has no iodine in it. And so these people are having to look a little differently at how they eat than, let's say, some of our Six Nations people who figured out how to survive in this type of climate with this kind of environment and soil for again many hundreds of years. So it's important again to put your own owner's manual together, but don't buy into too many of the generalities. Figure it out. Poison is in the dose. You can't have too much of a good thing. It's really important to eat a variety of things, be engaged in a variety of things. If you have too much of something, it can become an issue. So if you're having there's even a disease called polydipsia, which is what happens when people drink just too much water. They can't get enough water. They actually hurt themselves by drinking too much water. So I don't see it. I've never seen it in my clinic, but I just thought I'd let you know that it is in the medical books. You can have too much of a good thing. Use common sense. Keep that balance there. It's important to have a safe place. I was saying earlier how, you've got that saber-toothed tiger analogy, or you're going out there and you're overcoming obstacles. And that's all well and good. We all need to do that, but we all need to have a place that we can come back to, recharge our batteries, feel absolutely safe. And it's important to create that if it's your home. And if you can't create it at home, then you have to create it somehow else. But it's absolutely vital. You need to have a place that you can retreat to and recharge your batteries. So I just wanted to share that. When we look at healthy people around the world, that's a very common thing. There's a certain kind of peaceful tradition where they are able to do that. And having gratitude is really important. Again, it actually changes our chemistry. When we have gratitude, when we write down about gratitude, when we are thankful, when we celebrate our wins, it actually changes our chemistry, and that actually benefits us. It allows us to heal better. It allows us to feel better. And again, we talk about, feel good chemicals in our brain and so on. And the big discussion is, which comes first? You purposely deciding to complete an action and feeling better, or having a chemical change and then you feel better. Well, I like the idea that we are the boss, not the chemicals. And the chemicals are just the way that we then have control our body and have our body go along with how good we feel. So it's important to do those things. Be the active person in the system. We talked about quality versus quantity in terms of friendship. Never stop learning, absolutely a critical piece of it. And again, I'm talking to the choir here. I mean, you people are all here because you are exactly doing these kind of things. And that's why I wanted to share some of that, because it's important to know that there's so much science that supports everything that you guys are doing. Again, our personality is not set for life. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to change. I'm in my mid-70s. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. And in another 10 years, I won't be the same person about every way I think that I am now. And I want to be more like Lucy when I grow up anyway. So we're going to just work on that. But it is part of the system. We never stop. And it's shocking to me. When I was young, I thought, there was a certain time when I'd learn everything, and then I'd get the secret handshake from the adults in the world, and I'd be in the inner sanctum of life. And it turns out that I'm just the same guy I was at 17. I just know more, and I know how much I don't know. And we're all in that game. Just keep learning, keep being willing to admit that we've made mistakes, and just carry on. Be interested. There's a concept called being interested versus being interesting. And one is, and they're both important. You have to be interesting or no one notices you. But at the same time, being interesting is an activity that expects others to recognize you and validate you and make you who you are. And it really is sort of like the effect. You're being the effect of others. Being interesting and nobody notices, I'm devastated. I'm being interesting, people clap for me, oh, I'm happy. But interesting isn't the powerful point of this relationship. It's being interested. Interested is the powerful activity and attitude that puts you in the driver's seat. Being interested. I remember as a young boy being very concerned because, you know, I didn't handle girls well. I wasn't a player. I was a bit shy. And I had that realization once. I realized, you know what? I don't have to be interesting. If I'm just interested, that opens the door. I'm okay. I'm in the driver's seat. You know, instead of waiting for someone to notice me, I'm going to just ask a question. How does that work? Why do you do that? Well, that's interesting. You know, it's and before you know it, you've created a relationship. You feel like you have some a power in your own life. So I just wanted to share that because being interested is so important. You know, when we're younger, you know, we're waiting at home for someone to call us, you know, and I hear that even from patients who are adults. Why is it that I'm always the one that's organizing things? You know, when I do nothing, nothing happens. I'm just sitting here at home. It's just terrible that I have. And I said, no, it's not terrible. You're obviously someone who is interested, someone who's in communication. Get out there and keep being a mover and a shaker. You know, being a victim and waiting for someone to notice you or call you up to go to a party is not the right attitude. You organize the party and you be interested in other people coming into that party, and that puts you in the driver's seat, and that's a wonderful way to live your life. So be interested in every aspect of your life. That is what puts you in the driver's seat, and that again is associated with longevity and good health. So being mindful, being conscientious, we've talked about that. I mean, there's a whole lecture we could do just on mindfulness, and I'm sure you've touched on some of that in the past maybe, but those are all pieces of the puzzle, which is why the word holistic is so appropriate. All right, so that's me there. And I wanted to, how am I doing for time? I raced through that very fast. So I'm going to go back over my single notes and just speak a little bit about a couple of other aspects of things that I wanted to touch on. I had done this before, and it had taken me an hour to go through, and this time it's taken me half of that time. Well, I do apologize. I think I'm going to, I think I did cover everything fairly well. I just went really fast. So anything else that I should be saying about that? I could speak more specifically about what we do as naturopathic doctors, if that could use up a little bit of the moment that you guys have shared with me. As a naturopathic doctor, I am, you know, I've been doing this for 32 years. It's kind of an interesting thing when you look at, you know, this is kind of my second and third career, and I started in my early 40s, and now 32 years later, you know, I've had a whole lifetime of being a naturopathic doctor, but it wasn't really my first career. It was something that I did back in the 80s when I was in my late 30s and then graduated in my early 40s. But as a naturopathic doctor, it is important to know that we don't do it all. And it's important to know that you need to find a healthcare provider of any kind that works with you. You feeling safe and comfortable with someone is half the healing process. And so I really encourage people to, you know, some people have gone to a naturopathic doctor and maybe didn't find it was really worked for them, or they didn't feel listened to. Get in a second opinion, because there's so many good choices out there, and it's really worth your while to take the time and energy to interview people who are going to be on your health team. And it really should include a naturopathic doctor, in my opinion. I think in the complementary healthcare field, naturopathic doctors are kind of the general practitioners of the complementary healthcare field. And of course, we do need our good medical doctors. We need a good dentist, like I said. The things that I've been able to do over the years have been really pretty wonderful. I'm humbled by the people that we've been able to help, because when people come in, the first visit that we have with the patient is an hour long, if not over an hour long. And during that time, we do simple things, take blood pressure, do a history, get really good workup of everything that's been going on. And that is something that many people really appreciate, because sometimes in other healthcare fields, everyone's very busy. We make sure we have that hour that we take with that patient. And so you get heard, you get understood. We take the time to make sure that we put all the pieces together. And that's the first priority. Take that time, get the information. And then the second piece of that puzzle is really, it's all patient driven. Everything that we do is about the patient. We don't have any other, things on our radar at all. It's what can we do together to put our heads together? Because again, we aren't doing things to people, we're doing things with people. And that's again another piece of the whole holistic approach to good health. Working together, shoulder to shoulder, to put strategies together. Now, there are things that we can do to them. We can do acupuncture, we can do hands-on, but really the long-term solution is what people do on their own. If I can inspire someone to go home and just eat another couple of vegetables a week, I've done something very valuable. There's a lot of studies, for example, people who have recovered who are in remission, let's say from basic breast cancer, when they look at 5 years later, just simple things like 2 extra servings of broccoli a week make a statistical difference in 5 years in the people that are still having remission versus not. That's not a big deal. It's not like you have to swim in it. It's not like you have to eat a whole bunch of stuff that you don't like. And if you don't like broccoli, eat your cauliflower, eat your cabbage, eat foods out of that cruciferous family. That is, they've got these high sulfur compounds that are just very healing and very immune boosting, and they need to be eaten. And you don't want to eat stuff you don't like. But you know what? If you don't like any vegetables at all, we definitely need to talk. Mom was right. You do need to eat your veggies, and it is important. But eat ones that you do like. We have 4 boys. We had 4 boys at home, and some of them were fussier eaters than others. But you can always find food that they like. And talking about broccoli, I had someone just the other day just hates broccoli, but I'll eat it with cheese sauce. And I says, well, then why don't you eat it with cheese sauce? Well, someone said that cheese was bad. And I said, so again, you've got to watch those generalities that creep into your life that say, there's something healthier about suffering than it is about enjoying the good food. Make food tasty. There's nothing healthier than fresh, green, beautiful, orange, colorful food with wonderful spices and wonderful sauces. Eat healthy, make it work for you, but you've got to eat those things. Absolutely critical that you do
Dr. Hoke, I hate to interrupt you. You are a wealth of information, and this has been so interesting, but I want the opportunity to say thank you on behalf of the Grand River Council on Aging and everybody that's tuned in here. And I heard